Canada is an immense land, a diverse land filled with valuable natural resources and skilled people.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for attending this webinar. My name is Bertrand Raoult, and I'm the Investment Officer for the Canadian Consulate in Sydney. Our role is quite simple. It is to facilitate your expansion in Canada. And how do we do it? Well, we are a one-stop shop, and we bring industry, community, and government partners together, and we offer seamless services that make it easy for you to grow your operations in Canada. Here are some examples of the services that we offer, and the best of all, they are free. Investment support, so we provide assistance in developing a business case for your next investment project. We provide information and advice on doing business in Canada, as well as strategic market intelligence on your industry. And obviously, we do organize site visits if you require them. We also provide introductions to provincial, territorial, and local investment promotion agencies who can help you access local opportunities, networks, and programs. We provide also introductions to key contacts in private industry, academia, and governments, as well as on strategic industry events and international activities. Finally, we provide referrals to investment support professionals such as lenders, lawyers, accounting firms, information specialists, or private sector industry association. And finally, we can assist you in your roadmap to success with information regarding industry-specific regulatory environment, as well as government programs that can help you set up business in Canada, access tax and R&D tax credits, as well as other incentives. Now, to today's agenda. First, we will hear from Andre-Francois Giroux, the Consul General of Canada in Sydney. Andre-Francois will inform you of the key facts about Canada's competitiveness for foreign direct investments. We will then have the pleasure of welcoming Spence, live from Toronto, about the Canadian mineral exploration industry. It will then be time to hear from Boyland, live from Vancouver, who will develop on incentives and support available to mining companies at the federal and provincial level. My colleague Logann McNamara will then tell you all you need to know regarding migrating or visiting Canada in terms of visas. And finally, we'll have time for question and answers with our own Mining Trade Commissioner, John Williams. Please feel free to ask your questions throughout the webinar through the chat functionality on the top right corner of your screen all along the presentation. So, to make a long story short, if you have a development project in Canada in general, and obviously in Canada, in North America in general, and obviously in Canada in particular, we want to hear from you and to assist you in your pathway to success. Let me now introduce you to Andre-Francois Giroux. Andre-Francois joined the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in 1995 and has since served in various positions, both in Canada and abroad. A few months ago, he started his posting as Consul General of Canada in Sydney. Prior to this, Andre-Francois was the NAFTA Secretary and Director of the Trade Agreement Secretariat, after having served as ambassador to Denmark from 2012 to 2016. Andre-Francois, over to you.
Merci, Bertrand. So it's a great honor to be able to address you today. I would first like to thank you for joining this seminar. As Bertrand has said, I'm now sitting in Sydney and I have the best job in the world, which is to sell you my country. And it's the best job because it's such an easy country to sell. There's so many good reasons why Canada should be a top of mind for you. So let me just, state some of the obvious reasons. But of course, nobody could have predicted a few months ago how 2020 would have turned out. COVID hit around the world. It hit here in Australia and it hit us hard in Canada. But because just like Australia, Canada has very strong fiscal posture, we were able to invest and support our businesses and our citizens. So as a result, we are expecting the economy to rebound next year, and even with a higher growth rate than originally expected, which is currently estimated at 5.5%. So, again, great place, all of the public money that will be going into the economy will, create wonderful opportunities. And those are just one among the many reasons why you should think Canada. Canada is one of the best places to do business. The matrix that existed before COVID-19 are still very much in place. Just to give you an example, it is estimated that for the period for 2020 to 2024, Canada will be the best place to do business among the G20. It's not me who's saying it, it's the Economist Intelligence Assessment. So, reliable source. But just to give you a sense, this is also sustained by previous experience where for 2015 to 2019, we were ranked second when it comes to our ratio of foreign investment to GDP among the G20. There are so many other reasons why you should think Canada. And just to list a few, and I don't want to bore you, but it's a great list. Obviously, low cost, low tax environment, highly educated and competitive workforce, a gateway to North America and the world. Canada has currently 14 active free trade agreements with covering 51 countries, which basically covers 3/3 of the world GDP, and also 1.5 billion consumers. So, just like Australia, Canada is a great gateway to North America, like Australia could be for the Asia Pacific. But, with our recent renewed NAFTA, the CUSMA, and our recent agreement with the EU as well, the CETA, and then just the very recent CPTPP, you can imagine how great of a place to do business it is. Also very important is that it's a great place to live and prosper. So I don't have to go through the list here, but dynamic cities, stable, predictable economy, good schools and universities, safe a place to enjoy yourself. So I will stop here because our experts who are joining us today, Keith, Mark, John, and Bertrand, will have a chance, and Logann as well, to drill down through these very specificities to make the case for Canada. And as Bertrand has said, we are here to serve. Please do reach out, and we will be happy to take you on this journey with us. Thank you, Bertrand. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Andre-Francois. It's now time to introduce you to Keith Spence. Keith is the president and partner of Global Mining Capital Corp. As a field geologist, Keith has experience in gold and base metals exploration in the Canadian North, China, and internationally. He has held senior positions in investment banking and corporate banking at Royal Bank of Canada Capital Markets and Bank of Montreal Capital Markets, where he was involved in corporate finance, mining finance, M&As, and international transactions. His experience in mining valuation is recognized internationally, and he has been involved in numerous financing deals. Keith, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bertrand, for that introduction. Your introduction made me feel a lot more than what I really am. But I'm really, really pleased that to be a Canada champion, to talk about some of the great things about Canada, in particular about the Canadian mining sector and why we are number one. To my Australian friends, I know you may beg to differ, but let me give you a little opportunity to see what the advantages are in Canada, and I'll brag a bit. So this is a presentation of bragging about our strengths. And so it's the time for the Maple Leaf to brag. I know you will be telling me some kangaroo mining stories later. Thank you very much. With respect to Canada, we're number one in terms of mining exploration. We're number one thought leader in the world in terms of best practices. That's what we like to think of ourselves. And we're a global leader in capital markets. Just before we, to remind you where we are in terms of the market, gold prices have done well since the beginning of the year. I have to thank PDAC for these slides. It has corrected a bit in the last month or so, but the trend long term is quite good, both long term and short term. The base metals coming from a peak in 2018 are heading up again. There is quite a bit of uptick, particularly with nickel and copper, and the prognosis looks well going forward. Battery metals, which includes some of the elements of the critical minerals that most of our friends in Australia would know, has been a bit of a peak in the last 2 years, but now has corrected. But the prognosis again is quite good, particularly since we have a new president in the United States who is a big proponent of the Green Deal, and battery metals will be high on his list. So I think this is probably the most positive in the sector for the next 4 years, with some of his policies and the trillions that is intended to spend to change the trajectory with respect to climate change in the US. Global exploration expenditures. This is a slide that I have to thank PDAC for. By project stage, you would see that exploration grassroots, which is the dotted line at the top, has declined over time, but is still relatively important in terms of exploration. The dominant players tend to be exploration companies in the earlier stages, but in the last few years, majors have taken up the slack. By company type, again, the same story, 31% is juniors. The majors have taken up a bit of the slack, but the intent is for the juniors to pick up. You would see exploration is becoming more and more difficult, increasing depth to find mines, and it's something that demands a lot of skills from exploration companies. In the last few months, there's been a lot of financing of exploration companies. Global exploration expenditures. The majority of the money has been going in the last decade or so to Latin America, but Australia and Canada is right near the top, both of them trading between 14 and 15%. The average in the last few years, Canada has been almost 16%, and Australia just a slight bit behind at close to 14%. Canada, we have a very diversified mineral endowment. We're a very large country, and we're very lucky that we have minerals, all kinds of minerals and mining potential across the country, from east to west, from coast to coast. These are some of the highly prospective mining districts some of you might know about with respect to gold, base metals, uranium, etc. I have a list of some of the big districts, the Abitibi Greenstone Belt at the Quebec-Ontario border. There's the Red Lake Gold District. It's been historically one of the areas that keep giving and giving. Note we have two Australian companies. In fact, I met one of them just recently with respect to looking at them as a possible investment now in the Red Lake district, and it also north of Red Lake in the Pickle Crow area, and also includes Evolution Mining, which is a major Australian junior mid-tier company. Sudbury District, nickel historically, the Hemlo region with gold and the great Hemlo find some years ago, the Labrador Trough in Newfoundland, Quebec, iron ore, the Bathurst Camp, historically famous for base metals in New Brunswick, the Athabasca region for uranium in Saskatchewan. Southern Saskatchewan, lots of potash, one of the largest producers of potash in the world. The Flint Fund District in Manitoba, base metals. The Golden Triangle out in British Columbia, which is one of the great hotspots in exploration, I'd say globally. The Yukon with respect to gold and base metals, Nunavut, gold and base metals, Northwest Territories, diamonds and other base metals. So I said we were the #1 in terms of exploration. We also like to think of ourselves as the thought leader in terms of best practices. We have a stable and predictable market. We have a pragmatic security regime. So when you acquire a project, you have some sense of stability and from a political risk point of view. Toronto and Vancouver, sometimes referred to as the Silicon Valleys of mining, a complete mining ecosystem, mining execs, lawyers, bankers, financiers, geologists, geophysicists, one-stop shopping, technical support, accountants, promoters, investor relations, etc. We have a benign class action lawsuit environment, unlike our neighbors to the south. Not every little thing is a class action in Canada. You have to go through a process in order to qualify for a class action lawsuit. So there's some protection there. And also directors and liabilities, an officer's liability is capped by statute. We have a world famous regulatory standards framework. 43-101, which is the gold standard most of you have heard about. It's considered the #1 standard for disclosure of properties and projects. In fact, if you spoke to someone in the junior space, the first question they'll ask you, do you have a 43-101 and what does it say? It has now become a bit of a brand on with respect to the quality of your project. We have the qualified person concept, very much like the competent person in Australia, where the technical person who does the report must take personal responsibility. It's not his company's responsibility. He is personally saying this project is good. In terms of valuation standards, I myself, I co-chair and co-founder of the Canadian Mining Valuation Standards, which is well recognized globally and used by the various stock exchanges in the world, including the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, Singapore Stock Exchange, the authorities in China, also recognized in Australia and the UK. And Canada is a leader among the standards, or brothers and sisters in Australia has the Valmin and South Africa, the Sambal code, which is very similar. This is how do you value a mining project and how you put a price on it, how much it's worth. The world famous standards for resource and reserves. We're a member of the CRISCO standards, which is similar to the JORC code. And most of you recognize this standard with respect to inferred resources, indicated and measured resources, and also reserves, probable and proven. Access to properties. How do you acquire a project, an early stage project in Canada? We have a free entry system, very accessible, very easy to stake. And so you just go out and you stake and you claim it. Now most of this is done via digital processes, but there are still manual staking going on in various provinces. And some provinces have what we call the Crown discretion system, where you apply to this particular province and they will grant you permission to acquire the project. Just a word about management of the soft risk. The social risk matters a lot in Canada. We care a lot about our Aboriginal and Indigenous communities. We care a lot about corporate social responsibility. We care about environmental issues. PDAC, of which I am a board member, we have a standard called E3+, which looks at both the social and the environmental aspects at the exploration stage. A lot of people believe that at the exploration stage, it's not necessary to have these standards, but we believe that once you enter the ground, you have good management of the social risk and the environmental risk, and it will help you in good stead later on. Recently, there's a new focus on ESG for reporting standards globally, and this is a big topic in Canada. Not only the environmental and the social, but now the governance aspect is very important. How do you acquire a company in Canada if you're Australian? Anything below 1.6 billion enterprise value. Australia is part of the trade special trade agreement. And so anything below 1.6, there's no regulatory approval from the government. If you're a state-owned enterprise, it's 428 million Canadian. And there's other aspects. I'm not going to go into the others. If you're a WTO state investor, it's a different number, a non-WTO. And also for cultural assets, like, for example, if you try to acquire the CBC or one of our cultural icons, the threshold is quite low. It's $5 million. There is a national security review for these assets. And we're very careful recently for geopolitical issues. So we've instituted this national security test. We want to make sure there's no effects on the defense capabilities of Canada. Sensitive technology or know-how is an issue. Critical infrastructure, supply chain of our goods, and also foreign surveillance or espionage. I'm not worried too much about my Australian partners. I don't think this would be a big issue. I'm touching slightly on slow to shares, but Mark will talk about it a lot more in his presentation. This is a unique Canadian invention. It allows companies to renounce their Canadian exploration expenditures and expenses towards the investors. And the investors get an opportunity to deduct them from for tax purposes. There's also something called a tax credit called the METC, and I'll let Mark talk more about it, that provides an additional 15%. nearly 70% of all the financings in Canada is done by way of flow-through shares. Just a chart showing you what it means if you invested $1,000, your effective cost is just over $300. And this is an example from the province of Ontario. Different provinces have different structures, but it's quite low. We're a global leader in capital markets. I'm rushing here a little. How does my time look, Andre?
You do have 4 minutes left, yes.
Okay, good. Equity financing for the mineral exploration, Canada versus the rest of the world. You would see we're one of the highest. We're up in the historically 40-30% range. We also have the leading mining stock exchange in the world. The leader in mining company listings is the TSX. About 1,500 mining companies are listed in the TSX, about 60% of the listed companies in the world. Great access to capital. In the last 5 years, $43 billion raised and over 6,000 financings. I have to thank the TSX for giving me these slides. Liquidity and trading, 41 billion shares traded in last year. Global visibility, more than 200 global analysts. And then the listing requirements are not onerous, depending on the stage of the project. Canada is ranked number 3 in the world. This surprises everybody in the equity capital markets. We're just behind the US and China and Hong Kong. We're ahead of the UK and our friends here in Australia. We're number 3 in the world in terms of the equity market. If you add bonds and debt, the numbers are different, and the UK will be higher. In terms of mining stock exchanges, we're the leading mining stock exchange in the world by far. We're more than double the ASX in Australia, and we're way several times larger than the US, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, or the AIM in the UK. We have global reach. Almost 50% of the projects that owned by Canadian listed companies are global in other countries. We have 2 other great stock exchanges. We have this Canadian Securities Exchange, the CSE, the smaller cap companies, and we have the Neo Exchange for larger cap companies. And last but not least, I want to invite you to PDAC next year. It's the world's most important event. There's a famous saying, if you you must go to Mecca before you die, you must come to PDAC before you die. I'm a member of the PDAC board, and it was a delight to promote them here. And I hope to see you online next year. Next year it will be online, and these are the dates. In conclusion, why Canada? We're a global leader in mining exploration. 2, we're a global thought leader in mining best practices. And 3, we're a global leader in mining capital markets. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith, for this very insightful presentations. I suppose our Australian friends will have some catch up to do, isn't it?
Yes.
Before I pass over to our next speaker, Mark Boyland, I just would like to remind you that you can ask your questions through the Q&A feature on the top right of the screen. Mark is the director of the Industry and Economic Analysis Division for the mining sector in Natural Resources Canada. Previously, Mark worked as director of the Softwood Lumber and Economic Analysis Divisions in the Canadian Forest Service. As a federal organization, NRCan develops policies and programs that enhance the contribution of the natural resources sector to the economy. Mark, over to you.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Bertrand. I don't even know if I need to go anymore. Keith covered it so well. You did a lot of bragging. I'm going to be bragging a little bit as well. I'm over in Vancouver, whereas Keith's over in Toronto. So we do have a little bit of city rivalry going on there. Always good-natured. We'll get right into it in terms of exploring in Canada the Canadian way. I just want to give a little bit of an outline. First, I'm going to briefly hit the details of the Canadian minerals and metals sector, such as the size of our mineral endowment and the size of our sector, some stats like that. And then I'll get to our exploration incentives and how we make your dollar go further in Canada that Keith explained. We have public geoscience information systems that Canada is justifiably proud of and are a real asset to our exploration companies. And I'll finish with a bit of a tour of who's doing what where to inspire you to join the fun and come do business in Canada. So first, much like Australia, Canada benefits from a rich resource endowment and is a leading mining nation. We produce more than 60 minerals and metals from about 200 active mines. In addition, we have more than 15,000 or so quarries for construction materials as well. The industry is an economic driver for communities and regions, particularly northern, remote, and Indigenous communities. In 2019, the mineral sector accounted for 5% of Canada's GDP, and it contributed over 700,000 jobs. The sector also accounts for 109 billion in mineral product exports, representing 19% of Canada's total merchandise exports. And as Keith mentioned, we are a global mining finance hub with the Toronto Stock Exchange and TX Venture Exchange. Where over half of the world's mining and exploration companies are listed, and over half the capital was raised in 2019. Canada offers some of the most generous tax incentives on the planet to encourage mineral exploration. This slide here talks about two of the programs that Keith mentioned already, the flow-through shares and the mineral exploration tax credit. So the flow-through shares, just so that everyone understands, because it's not a common type of program, allows exploration expenses to be claimed on the investor's personal income tax. So, and the second is the mineral exploration tax credit, which is on top of that, and that's a 15% tax credit. In addition, some provinces harmonize their provincial tax credits and deductions, so further reducing the investor's net cost on top of the federal income tax. So if you invest $1,000 in flow-through shares in British Columbia, that's on the bottom left there, your net cost after tax would be only $316. In Quebec, over on the right, $306, and in Manitoba, only $295. So as you would think, this tax treatment incentivizes hundreds of millions in investment for the exploration sector every year. In addition to flow-through shares and mineral exploration tax credit, the governments at all levels provide a wide range of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives for the mining sector writ large. I won't go through all those here, but I note that some of them are very significant. Export Development Canada is a federal crown corporation, and it provides financing and support for the mineral sector, and it does business in all jurisdictions. The Northern Ontario Industrial Electricity Rate Program, a name only government could come up with, provides $120 million annually to lower electricity rates by up to 25%. And the Yukon Mineral Exploration Program provides a portion of the risk capital required to locate, explore, and develop mineral occurrences in the Yukon. So depending on where you are, there are a number of boutique programs that you can access when you come to do business in Canada. One of the things that we are the most proud of here in terms of our federal contribution to the exploration sector is our federal geoscience programs. They provide publicly available pre-competitive geoscience information. There's two streams of programs which were just renewed for a total of $135 million over 7 years. The Targeted Geoscience Initiative, or TGI, provides next generation geological knowledge and innovative techniques to target deeply buried mineral deposits. And as Keith showed, we're starting to get deeper and deeper in our claims. And the Geomapping for Energy and Minerals the GEM program, provides geoscientific knowledge of the immense untapped resources in Canada's north and informs mineral resource opportunities and sustainable land use in the context of a changing climate. These programs conduct research that's intended to better understand the geological context around mineral deposits. The public geoscience knowledge generated through this research helps mineral exploration companies plan efficient and effective exploration campaigns, and also helps the government and communities plan land use and successful development of infrastructure that enables the access to mineral resources. As a result of these benefits, NRCan mineral geoscience research helps to attract investment in Canada in the mineral exploration and development spaces. The second part of this slide here highlights the responsive nature of our government to the mining sector. So the COVID pandemic made getting into the field difficult for some exploration companies, as you can imagine. And normally these firms have a fixed time limit to spend their flow-through share investments. However, this became difficult to meet in some instances. So the federal government extended the timelines for flow-through shares by 12 months. And this provided companies with the additional time needed to incur eligible expenses and allow them to safely plan when to best continue their operations. So as noted on the previous slide, the TGI and GEM geoscience programs are key sources of public geoscience in support of mineral exploration in Canada. This approach aligns with the government's commitment to openness and transparency and leveling the playing field between large and small companies, encouraging exploration, and communities in industry, ensuring all have the same information in land use negotiations. NRCan aims to make its public geoscience as accessible as possible to the people who need it. Geoscience knowledge is shared online or disseminated at conferences, workshops, and other fora, and education activities and program awareness activities are also available to the public. The public science is both extensive and highly used here in Canada. Since 2005, over 5,000 organizations have benefited from this knowledge with more than 3.5 million downloads of information. For the mineral exploration industry, public geoscience allows companies to spend their high-risk exploration dollars in an area where good geological knowledge is available that suggests an acceptable probability of success. To get a sense of the economic impact of public geoscience, we commissioned a study by Ernst & Young this year. They found that the TGI and GEM program saw a 7-fold return on investment. For every federal dollar invested in the program, the public geoscience resulted in $7 of economic benefits. These types of benefits has led the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, yay Keith, to state public geoscience is the lifeblood of mineral exploration. This is a product that we produce every year. The top 100 exploration companies, exploration projects in Canada. The full number of active mineral and exploration projects varies from about 1,500 to about 3,000, depending on mineral and metal exports, mineral and metal markets and global economic conditions. There we go. They're color-coded by commodity. So you can see diamonds in the north there. Uranium's a light green in the middle. Potash is the darker green under that. And there's a cluster of gold products in the northwest coast. The brown ones are the base metals spread out across the country. Critical minerals are increasingly moving to the forefront of government policy and industry supply chain risk. There isn't a convenient international definition, but broadly, these are minerals that are essential to the functioning of economies, have threats to their supply, and have no easy substitutes. This is true for established manufacturing, but also for the emerging renewable energy and clean technology spaces, battery minerals and permanent magnets, for example. Canada is already a leading global producer of several critical minerals, including nickel and cobalt. Canada ranks 5th for nickel and 8th for cobalt, 2nd in global production of uranium, 4th for aluminum, and 12th for copper. You can see them on the map, the locations for critical minerals, mines, and smelters, and advanced projects located all the way across Canada. Canada has been attracting attention as an attractive investment destination for industries seeking responsibly sourced minerals due to our world-renowned environmental, social, and governance credentials, as well as globally recognized green mining practices. These are a whole other broader supply of picture of the supports to the mining sector in Canada. And I'll just highlight a couple. First, we have the Canadian Minerals and Mining Metals Plan, the CMMP, released in 2019, which depicted a national policy vision to support the mining sector. The action plan was recently released, providing detailed steps to fulfill the vision. Further, Canada is a global example of partnerships with Indigenous communities. The sector is a significant employer of Indigenous peoples, providing over 16,000 jobs. And finally, Bertrand can answer any of your questions. He's the local contact there for you. He can also correct any mistakes that I've made, I suppose, but the mistakes are all mine. So back to you, Bertrand.
Thank you very much, Mark. No, I wouldn't dare correcting you at all. It was a very insightful presentation. For the people around that want to know more about the critical minerals, we do have a very good investment business case that has been produced at the beginning of the year. It's available on our booth at IMARC, but I can forward it to you anytime you want. So Mark, thanks a lot. That was very insightful. We have received a number of questions already. So feel free to, for the ones that want to dig more on some of the subjects, to keep on firing them, and John later on will moderate the question and answers. It's time for me to introduce you to my colleague, Logann McNamara, and she will be talking about travel and visas to Canada. Obviously, a topic that is much more difficult to cover now than it was probably at the same time last year. Logann joined the Foreign Service in 2001 and is Canada's current Migration Program Manager in Sydney. Logann has held several previous overseas assignments, including Abu Dhabi, Damascus, Warsaw, and New York. A consistent and big challenge faced by many businesses and individuals in 2020 has been international mobility. And Logann will tell you now all you need to know in terms of visas and travel exemptions for both immigration and business visits. Logann, over to you.
Thank you, Bertrand. So I'll try to keep it quick. There's been a lot of changes, and before you plan any travel to Canada, you need to investigate fully that there won't be any problems in transit. The rules are changing all the time. That said, the actual entry requirements for business trips and work in Canada haven't changed that much since March, when the travel ban was put into place. You can always follow canada.ca and look into the COVID travel restrictions there, or follow IRCC or CBSA on Twitter for updates. The easiest way to do business in Canada right now is through having a work permit. These can be issued even if in previous years the work being conducted in Canada did not require a work permit. And all work permits must be applied for online. So before COVID times, you could apply at the border, and that is not an option anymore. Under COVID, all applications for work permits must be received online. And you can arrange things, for example, if normally you wouldn't have done business, a work permit type work, you can have the business in Canada submit the application as the employer, unless it's your business in Canada, and then everything will proceed as per normal. Biometrics is also something that has been causing problem with a lot of our traveling workers because of the domestic travel restrictions inside Australia. Our biometric collection points are in Sydney and in Melbourne. And as you might expect, Melbourne has been open and closed with the shutdowns. It's currently open, but that doesn't help our applicants from Western Australia. Now, if this creates an issue for workers that are required on job sites in Canada, we can look at waiving this requirement depending on the situation. So you can always email the migration office if this is going to be an issue for your workers. Skilled workers are also able to bring their family members to Canada, and they will, along with the worker, be issued facilitation letters for avoiding the travel ban. Your specialized knowledge worker and management employees can also apply under the global skills strategy. But one of the impacts of COVID is that the 2-week time frame that we normally committed to has been, is regularly exceeded. Again, if this is an issue for your company, you can email the migration office in Sydney and we can see if we can unstick these applications for your company. But a lot of mining employees are not in the global skills category, and it's only for your senior management and engineering and that sort of worker, researchers. In any case, we would, for the other workers, we would get them directly in Sydney. For the, what's interesting is that normally an in-Canada processing is faster, and that's where the global skills applications will go. But now we're seeing a bit of the inverse, where the mission in Sydney might be a bit faster. So you can always email us if you find that there's a processing problem that is getting in the way of your operation. Now I want to talk briefly about quarantine. Canada's quarantine strategy is a bit different than Australia's. Everyone is required to do quarantine, but their quarantine is self-planned. So when they arrive in Canada, they must discuss with the entry officer what the plan is, how they're going to get to the place where they're planning on isolating, how they are planning on receiving essential supplies like groceries. And it's not in a government managed hotel facility unless the person arrives with no plan. In that case, the government has quarantine locations set up. If they are displaying any symptoms when they arrive in Canada, they will not be allowed to proceed domestically to their final destination, and they will be immediately put into a quarantine facility. During travel, everyone is required to wear masks, and at boarding, they present their documents and show how they meet the travel ban exemption. There's also this month a mandatory CBSA arrival app that they should download on their phone, and it's sort of an advanced arrival notification system that's separate from what the airlines always do. And finally, what I want to talk briefly about is business visits. There is no exemption currently under the travel ban for business visits. So that's why if it is for in a period where it might apply or where it might meet the definition of work, and you can get a work permit for that, but you wouldn't normally go to that step for a meeting or for training. For business visits, the only way is to make a national interest argument, in which case you have to demonstrate how your business visit to Canada is in Canada's national interest. And this is an email-based process, so you can get in touch with the trade team or the immigration team. But it's hard for us to predict the time taken. However, do be advised that we have had people who've gotten stuck at transit points on the way to Canada because they have not arranged permission for a business visit in advance. So we really urge you to take great care when planning the travel, that you're sure that the person is going to be able to make the complete trip. I think that's all that I have to say. I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Logann. And I have to say that Logann and her team have been extremely efficient in assisting companies over the last few months. And I mean, it's a difficult situation. Things are changing quite regularly, and they are doing an outstanding job in assisting the companies that need to travel to Canada. Thank you very much. It's now time for our question and answers. This session will be moderated by my colleague John Williams, our own Brisbane-based Mining Trade Commissioner. John was appointed as Trade Commissioner for Canada in 2013. He's responsible for the natural resources sector in Australia, supporting Canadian companies develop business in Australia and increasingly supporting Australian companies investing into Canada. Immediately prior to his role, John spent 15 months in London as European Director for Trade and Investment Queensland, following a 20-year British diplomatic career. John, over to you.
Many thanks, Bertrand. And thank you to all the participants today who've submitted their questions. We'll start with one for Mark, please, of NRCan. We've touched on critical minerals a couple of times, but one of the questions is Canada developing a critical minerals list similar to those that have happened in Australia, the US, and the European Union?
Thanks, John. The answer is yes, we are. It's not ready for prime time yet. We're still consulting with our stakeholders. So I can't give you, I can't release, too much information here before all our stakeholders have agreed. But I hope we do have a critical minerals list before too long in the new year. That'll really help us to direct investment. Use it as a policy tool and to attract more investment into that space. We're very excited here about the potential for critical minerals to fuel the coming technologies of the green economy. So batteries in particular, we're looking at manufacturing batteries in Canada. We have a great supply of battery minerals, from nickel all the way through to cobalt, lithium, graphite, and whatnot. A lot of potential in that area. And so, of course, those types of minerals would feature quite large on a critical minerals list in Canada. I have to say our list would be a little bit different, I think, than Australia's, the one we're looking at, and a little bit different than the US, EU, and Japan, South Korea. Those latter four have lists that are really internally, domestically focused on their manufacturing, whereas Australia's is a little bit more directed towards export opportunities. Ours sits a little bit more in the middle. We're very much concerned with our economic security and the investment space in terms of the green economy and clean technologies. We're also very much interested in the national security aspects, making sure that us and our allies have the correct materials for national defense. And also, we certainly do see the opportunity for exporting and being a responsible, sustainable, and reliable exporter of critical minerals to our allies and integrate ourselves into those supply chains. So we do see a lot of potential in Canada for critical minerals, and we expect that it'll be a large component of our business moving forward.
Great, thank you. We have one, I think, for Logann. She's touched on traveling to Canada to attend business meetings already. There's another one, I think, more general about how easy is it to work in Canada for an Australian?
That's a tricky question because first of all, the absolute easiest thing for an Australian to do, and Australians have a significant advantage over almost everyone else, is if you're between the ages of 18 and 35, you can go on a working holiday and then work for any employer in Canada that you want to work for, or even not work. So that is up to 2 years of employment, and you just have to apply before you turn 35. So in terms of easiness, that is the absolute easiest thing ever. However, it's a once in a lifetime type thing. So if you've already done a working holiday, you can't do it a second time. Although there is another program in terms of co-ops and internships. So those will give you another kick at the can, but there's a lot more rules around it. Then it's the same as for any other person. You need to find a job in Canada that the employer is willing to submit a labor market exemption and do all of the paperwork on the Canadian employer end. And along those lines, the difficulty level is the same for Australians as for anyone else trying to work in Canada. You need to find a job offer.
John, can I add to that?
Please.
Oh, yes, just personally. So I'm actually half Australian. My parents are Australians. I grew up knowing that St. George was the only team out there, and had an uncle that played for the Dragons when they came marching in back in the day. And on the other side, you know, my father's from Brisbane, and, you know, when the Broncos started up, there was family strife. So I can say, though, that it is, in fact, a very easy place. There's a lot of similarities, for those of you who haven't been here, between the two countries. We're not upside down, even though you are down under down there. Everything just works perfectly. So I invite you to come on up and see how we do things here.
Great, thank you. A question now for Keith, and interesting one. Someone said there are so many similarities in the mining industry between Canada and Australia. What differences do you see between the countries in the mining space?
Oh, that's a very good question. A very, very good question. Astute question. I think number one, if you look at mining projects or mining companies in Australia, the valuations are quite high, so comparatively higher than Canada. I'm not sure for the reason. There are some reasons I can speculate, but in general, the same exploration company in Canada versus the same exploration company in Australia, the valuations are considerably higher. Also, the executives in Australian mining companies, including exploration companies, are compensated tremendously higher than their sister companies or brother companies in Canada. Another big difference is there's something that I think we should have here in Canada, and one of these days we'll have it a lot, is the tolling arrangement, i.e. you have one processing facility that would supply a bunch of smaller mines in an area. That's done quite a bit in, I know there's a couple in Brisbane, but mainly out in Western Australia. And so those guys in Perth have done well at this tolling arrangement. It hasn't really caught on in Canada, and sometimes you see 3-4 mines with similar processing facilities in the same area. And simple common sense will tell you, why not share logistics and share processing facilities? I think that is something that will happen in Canada, because I hear a lot of people talking about that. Another big difference is in Canada, our major sort of big mineral besides gold, you find gold in both places, is uranium and potash. But in the case of Australia, it's iron ore. You know, Australia is the iron ore king of the world. So iron ore.
Excuse me, Keith.
Yeah.
Apologies, I think we'll be cut off in just a few seconds.
Okay, yes. And in general, they are the same, and the differences are very slight.
Great, thank you. I'll pass back to Bertrand.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And it's time to wrap up. Thanks a lot to all our speakers and all of you who took some time to attend this webinar. If there's only one key takeaway message, is that Canada is very much open for business. So feel free to liaise with John and I We have recorded the question that we haven't been able to answer, and we will hopefully be answering these directly to you in the future. Open for discussion directly to you in the future. Open for discussions, and looking forward to do business with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Canada is an immense land, a diverse land filled with valuable natural resources and skilled people.